everyone. My name is Appiah-Kubi, and I'm happy to present the panel Women of Color in Love for Right Woman Book Fest in our third year. I'm here with Camille Baker, Tinkin Lam, and Maan Gabriel, all three very cool debut authors here to talk about the love stories in their novels and the love stories that have shaped their lives. So we're going to dive right in. We're talking about our books. Camille, why don't you begin?
All right, hi, I'm Camille Baker, and my debut book is called Have We Met? It came out this past July, and it's about a girl in her late 20s. She moves to Chicago, kind of in the midst of her grief because she lost her best friend, and so it's basically about her building a community and finding love, especially when a mysterious app pops on her phone saying that she's met her soulmate already and that it'll send her someone that she missed the connection with from the past 27 years.
I love your cover. It's not often that you see women with natural hair, Black women with natural hair on covers. So
yes, and it looks really good. The artist is Tyler Misha, and she did such a great job.
Wonderful. Tinkin?
Oh, hi everybody. I'm Tinkin Lam, and my book is Happy Endings. It's an interracial romance set in DC with a Vietnamese American heroine who is a sex toy sales consultant, and she runs into her ex who happens to run DC's top soul food restaurant, and they're trying to save their business from gentrification in Northeast DC, and they decide to work together to put on sex toy pop-up shops. And of course, you know, sparks will fly because they're spending a lot of time together.
So hi, my name is Maan Gabriel. I'm a debut author of the book After Perfect. It's this book is about a 36-year-old Filipino American, Gabby, who's been recently divorced and is really going through tough times with her life. She's Filipino. She's with her traditional Filipino mom. You know, she's been cuddled and nurtured and babied. And like me, I left my home at 26 years old. So it's that journey of choosing when to decide for yourself and be independent and hopefully fall in love again. So that's the story of my book.
Love it. And like I said, I'm Eden, coming to you from Prince George's County, Maryland, and I wrote The Bennett Woman, which is a spin on Pride and Prejudice taking place on a college campus starring EJ, my Black engineering major, also an RA who is trying to wing woman her best friend Jamie through her first real relationship. Jamie is a newly out trans woman, and so she's being extra supportive. And as part of supporting her, she has to deal with the arrogant and annoying Will Pack, a C-list actor who is on campus for reasons no one quite knows yet. Hijinks shall ensue. And that's The Bennett Woman.
Exciting.
So we all have four young women, or four millennial to Gen Z women who are all having sort of turning point to their lives and all falling in love. So without spoilers, what role does romantic love play in your novels? Again, we'll start with Camille.
So yes, my novel, romantic love is kind of at the center. I don't know. It's funny because, you know, there's like a huge discussion about women's fiction versus romance. And so when I was on the journey to getting this book published, I was going with it as a romance. And then I was thinking at some point, you know, if someone thought otherwise, they would tell me. And so they did. So it's published as like contemporary fiction because my editor liked the women's fiction element. So she brought out more of it. And so there was like more of a balance. But the romance is still pretty central. And I mean, it's a love story. I love it. But also there's plenty of love found in like the friendships and the family. And I think I love that just as much, almost more. But yeah. And then there's four potential, you know.
Oh.
So it gets messy. I like it.
Well, I love seeing a dark-skinned Black heroine so desired. There are four options.
I like it too. I like it too, yes.
Tim Kim?
Yeah, so my book is decidedly in the romance genre. I knew that I wanted to write a romance that featured an interracial couple, similar to my relationship with my husband, because that was something that I had never been able to find when I was reading romance as a teen, and then after I became a mom in my 20s. And I really wanted to showcase that that this romance wasn't about race as a conflict or culture as a conflict, but more about their baggage. Both of them have a lot of baggage, Andre especially. And I just wanted them to have this opportunity to relearn each other and see how they've changed and hopefully find their way back to falling in love again.
My turn? So mine is just like Camille, it's the women's fiction and the romance mesh. But so the stories before Gabby's divorce became final, she fell in love with a younger guy who's got troubles of his own. But to actually understand, I felt like when I was writing it, to actually understand romantic love, we should also define what love is, because it's very multidimensional, and to understand loving someone else, I think there's this inner, like a need to understand what love is within. So there was this parallel women's fiction journey, self-love and understanding where it is with the romantic love. And I was just really excited because the journey was like going through together. So that's it.
Well, my whole thing is I was one of those sassy, know-it-all AP students who, when I first read Pride and Prejudice, was like, oh, you loved him after you saw Pemberley. Uh-huh. Okay, Lizzie. Your sisters have A prospects, and suddenly you're in love with the richest man you could find after you see his big honking house. Okay, sure, right. So less sarcastic, much older Eden down the road. It's like, okay, when this idea came to me, it's like what I want to do is see the love on the page. Because Pride and Prejudice is it's a great marriage plot. It's a great social commentary, but it's not a love story. It's there's love is central to it, but it's so much about like the obstacles of love that come through society in various ways. And so it's like, if I just said, I want to convincingly show how these two characters can come from dislike to love. And I think it's a thing that I'm hearing a lot of things, like people have to grow, even 20-year-old college students, everyone has to grow with love, especially for a true love, or a love that we can believe is going to last for more than, I wrote a happily for now because they're 22, but I could see it being a happily ever after. For us to be able to imagine our characters wandering off the page into a very happy life, people have to grow into the capacity to grow through that process. And that's what I think, that both the characters, have their prejudices and have things that are stubborn, but through the relationship, decide to be better for each other. And decide to demonstrate they can be better for each other. And I think that's what the pure romance is of mine. It's just sort of like people choosing to risk being something different for this beautiful love that they're trying to pursue, and that it's worth it. And even when they feel weird or dumb, that it's worth pursuing. And I think that it's a kind of vulnerability that you have to have, and that we have to see for, I'm gonna speak just for Black women, that like, another thing I wanted to write her EJ in college specifically, because I feel like I see Black women in high school, I see them at 40 in popular culture, but they're like something like the messy area, it's until Insecure. I'm sure I write this before Insecure, like there's books take a long time to write, y'all. And I started writing this before Insecure, but until that point, I had not seen messy, complicated, growing Black women. And like EJ's a, her tendency is maybe more workaholic perfectionist, but she still has growing to do and growing up to do. And I wanted to start with someone who I saw as like needing to grow and needing to change and needing to examine her life a bit while also falling in love. And that's two kinds of vulnerability, I think, for Black women, be both imperfect in public and then also be vulnerable that way to kind of find love. So that's what I'm hoping to do with the book. That's what I hope I did. And that's why I wanted to put that on the page most of all. And then, but I also had to think of like, friendships matter, and especially the friendships in college can really shape you. They can really shape the choices you make and who you become. And, so I wanted to highlight this found family. That's why Bookstagram, they're Bennett Women and not Bennett Sisters, because I wanted them to be a found family and not bound by anything but the choice to love and care for and fight for each other.
I love found family. That's one of my like favorite catnip for romances. And so I have found family in my book too. So they're 4 friends who are entrepreneurs, and they help each other with their businesses and their lives. And they like writing those characters bring me joy, which I'm sure is like, those 3 women in your book, they so much joy when they're together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the same with me. So earlier reviewers said they love my side characters because they can really understand the friendship. So yeah, found family is the best.
Same. I also have found family. It's the best. I don't know. I just feel like my books at least are not complete without. I'm like, okay, but who else is coming into the picture? Like you have the romance, sure, but it's the people around them too that is very important.
Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think this is a woman of color thing, but I think that the community aspect that like, that like, can you see this world without the community around them? And I just couldn't. Like, who are her friends has to be answered. They can't just be, stick figures of encouragement who come in and out of scenes. We have to know who her friends are.
That's very true. I didn't even think about that, but yes, that makes so much sense.
And I don't know, I think I explained it to Eden about this too, that when I was writing my book, I didn't know my main character very well. It was more of like me reacting to circumstances of what her friends were going on around her or how her friends were pushing on. So we were making that decision together. So I like that journey very much.
Yeah, and I also think like that comes from, speaking of for myself as a woman of color, like finding female friendships was not easy, right? Like not everybody understands what we go through as people of color, and to find women who have maybe experienced similar things or really understand or open-minded about, like those are the people you keep close. Those people get you, and they're not gonna like push away a fear you have by saying, oh, you're just imagining things, when like the world, or I think we all have contemporary like that. In the reality, the world does, see us differently, and we want our friends to understand that.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things I had established early in my book, that, I am passionate about diversity and different kinds of diversity. I didn't want EJ to have just a circle of different Black friends because I was trying to write my experience. And my experience was I had a bed and, I'm dating myself, but I had rainbow friendships in college. I went to a predominantly white college, and but most of my friendships were with other women of color, like not all Black. I think we were 2 of everything, actually. But South Asian, Filipina, American, but we were all able to hear each other's experiences and sympathize and understand and listen, even if we weren't able to experience something directly. Like, someone told me like that, how they felt about a certain Bhangra thing happening on the quad, and it was like really off, and they should have asked someone. I could say like, I may not be able to talk about Bhangra with the expertise, but I can understand things, and they'd be like, oh, that was regrettable for everyone. So just that cross-cultural understanding had to be established and had to undergird the friendship. It couldn't just be like we are friends because we're women and we like tennis. It had to go deeper than that to be the kind of friendship that I could support my characters through the novel. Do we want to get the side characters a minute? Everyone want to talk about their favorite friendship in the book?
Oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. So Trixie, my heroine, so all her girlfriends, they have different personalities, but her best friend is this, she's like a very sassy Southern woman who, she's the only white person in the group, and she owns a burlesque club. So she says whatever, whatever comes to her mind, and she just takes no ish from anybody. And I think it's a good foil for Trixie, who's, she's still feeling her way around and more hesitant. But also like Andre has like a playboy guy friend who's always like, hey, you should just go hit that, that kind of thing. So it's definitely, but he turns out to be very sensitive and gives Andre really good advice. And I think that those characters kind of came alive without me intending for them to, like in a different way. Yeah.
I think that's the same with me. It's fascinating when you write friends. It just pops up and it's like, oh, this is the kind of person I want to be with, So for me, the friendships in my book, is it my turn? Can I say?
Oh yeah.
Of course,
This is a conversation. I want to build a conversation.
Yes, I got carried away because for me, the dilemma was Gabby and Simon. They've been friends since middle school, started dating in high school, and finally got married in college. And then, 16 years later, they got divorced. And they're a trio. They're a threesome. So 2 girls and Simon, and they've been best friends all their lives. So how to navigate that was really hard because most of the history or your childhood stories included your husband, who are you're divorcing. That means you're saying goodbye to. So I don't want to spoil it, but there's that dynamic that I was working through because, as I was saying in some of my other interviews, I was hoping there was no villain in the story.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping things happen because, fate and circumstances. But also it was the time when Gabby, my heroine, started to open up her world and invite new friends. So she met this 70-year-old bookstore owner who's a lot of backstories too, but has a lot of, fun and sensitive and just like a granddad she's never had. So yeah, I love those people. I know they're not real, but I love them.
The first side character that came to mind from my book that I loved was my main character's kind of cousin, Tawanda, but she gets her own book. And so I'm just like, I love you and everything, but you're really making me work for your story. But when I first got her on the page, I just liked her because she was funny. She was just like a no nonsense kind of person. She really didn't entertain like the relationship shenanigans going on. It's just like, no, the person is like, okay, you can just talk to them. That type of person. Mm-hmm. But yeah, but now working on her book and I'll love her at the end of the process again, I'm sure.
They can kind of take control sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I think my favorite, oh gosh, it's so hard because I wrote a trio. I guess by a hair, even though I think that Jamie and AJ do have a more of a sister sort of joined at the hip, almost mind meld kind of relationship. So the foil to almost both of them is Tessa. And Tessa, she's sort of the Charlotte Lucas. She's the more practical one. She's the one who's not afraid to say what needs to be said loudly until you listen. And she also goes after what she wants. So I have this very funny scene. Of course, I don't think it's spoiling much, but there's you know, we know that we meet Will Pack and we're not supposed to be like befriending or hanging out with Will Pack, but Tessa's a huge Will Pack fan, and so she's like, how can I bargain with EJ so that we can actually like invite him to this thing that we're doing? And the exchange is just like, you know, like, okay, what do I have to do? And EJ's like, ha, 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 ha. And just like this little like semi-villainous like fun exchange of like friends who love each other but like also love giving each other crap, you know. And I think that because her action was mostly like what to do with her crappy stand-in for Colin boyfriend, like she got to actually have, I think, a bit more fun than Jamie's slightly more dramatic what's going on with my new relationship arc. So I think we got to see Tessa's friendship more. Yeah. Fun times. I love all kinds of love. Okay, now this is obvious, but I think that some people may be asking, why wasn't it important, may seem obvious, but why was it important to you that your heroine be a woman of color? Anyone want to jump in, or should I go? Okay, right, back to Brave Runs. Camille.
I don't know. I think, well, when I first got into romance, it was because it was other authors of color writing women in color. And so that was what really drew me into the romance genre in the first place. Seeing myself on page and seeing other women of color on the page empowered me to tell stories of women who look like me. So it wasn't like a big choice. I've been writing, this is my 6th book I've tried to write and publish. So like, you know, it's always is a woman of color, or it's always a Black woman. But yeah.
Yeah, like Camille, I always knew that my heroine had to be Vietnamese American because I wanted the representation. Like like I was saying earlier, before I started writing this before the Kiss Quotient was published. So back then I couldn't think of a contemporary romance with Vietnamese characters as the protagonist, and I thought, we gotta do something about this because if I'm looking for it, I know others are. And it was just really important to me to showcase Vietnamese people. You see, there's a lot of literary fiction about Vietnamese Americans, Vietnamese refugees. And while that story is really important, I think that we've had 3-4 generations of Vietnamese Americans in the US now. Like it's time to tell other stories, happier stories, people like really thriving, and finding love and finding themselves outside of that history of war that I think like the U.S. really likes to remind us existed, and definitely a little white savior complex there. But I just wanted to show us being us and being happy and not a trauma story.
Yeah, for me, it was only recently that I got to see myself in romance novels, really. Actually, in mainstream contemporary fiction, like If Marcello and, those kinds of books, or Cynic and Adobo, they're very, very recent. So I felt it was fitting to showcase my Filipino heritage, and it's a voice that I have, that I own. And so I thought, yeah, there are so many Filipinos out there clamoring for this kind of stories and representation. We're also very interesting. Some people might want to know more about us. And, it's also, I felt like it was also time for us to occupy mainstream literary space. And so we're here.
Yay! And we're better for it. So EJ was always Black, always witty, dark-skinned, and I think I started this novel started with a exercise for a writing group back in the Obama era. I'm not gonna say too long because I just don't want to date myself, but I was just sort of thinking, I've never seen a a character who was like me in college, just of any kind. I didn't know what kind of novel it was going to be. I was like, can I write a novel? Let's find out. And as I continued, I got to see some Talia Hibbert. I got to see them, Jasmine Guillory. I was like, wait.
Yes, she's amazing.
And I was like, wait, does the world need my book? I was like, but I can still write it, and someone might want it just because it's a different version of it. I don't have to say like, okay, there's two Black authors doing well. Like now I can just sit back and wait. Like there might be room for more, like me. and I really feel you, Kim, about joy and like different stories. I was like, what's not going to happen in my book is we're not going to do sexual assault. We're not going to do like blatant like macroaggressions, if you will, like beyond like the things that are painful in work, or like I'm not going to make higher learning for a 21st century. If people remember that movie with Lawrence Fishburne, it starts with a sexual assault, ends with a school shooting, and it's just like a bit too much. And so they're like, I want my people of color to be happy. I want my readers not to have to wince and brace themselves, especially with I have a trans character as well, Jamie, in my novel. Like when you're women of color, when you're reading a book, you're sort of like, okay, when does terrible thing happen, and that's always, especially literary fiction, my God, it's just sort of like if there's a world I wouldn't have, it's like it's dangerous to be a person of any kind of minority in a literary fiction novel. Something will happen to you
but true.
very eloquently for a long time. And so I wanted that joy on the page. I wanted to give readers something happy that maybe they hadn't seen before. So it was important to me to be both Black and happy. and dark skinned, because I had not seen colorism directly addressed yet. And it's not like, again, an overarching theme. EJ's not being down by it, but she acknowledges it, like there are people like just I think it's like a paragraph just sort of like talking about like, there are people who are not interested because she's Black, and there's not people who are not interested because she's dark, and that's just a thing that she has to deal with, and same as the thing being a woman in science. It's not, we don't go around with our heads hung low singing Conor Oberst songs or like Negro spirituals. We get on with our lives. Just it's just a thing that we know is part of the deal. I still wouldn't want to be anything else. I just know that that's in the starter pack.
Yeah, I love writing Black women as my main characters. I feel like there's so many like layers and complexities to like my identity. So I love writing characters to share my identity because it's just more exploration. There's deeper, like I can dig and go, and especially when I expanded and thinking about Black family and Black community, and you'll never run out of stories when you're like writing.
And it's important to show different experience, right? Like two Black people are not going to experience the same thing, or two Vietnamese people. And the more stories we have showcasing that, like the less, hopefully we're showing people that we're not the stereotype that people assume that they see on, TV or movies, that all these different experiences and backgrounds exist. And it's just not the color of our skin that informs you what kind of person they are.
Agree completely.
And there's so much I want to do. I love my lane. If I'm going to pick one, like I feel like Jasmine Guillory likes to write like cool professional women of color. I like to write Black weirdos. Or Black nerds. That's sort of my like people have that double layered identity. Like my next book is about Maya, the sister of my main character. And if EJ was more of the like dorkier side, Maya was more of the emo, artistic demi-goth kind of Black weirdo. And there are lots of different flavors of Black weirdo that, again, I haven't seen out there yet, and I haven't seen as a main character. So
the world is waiting.
Yes. All right. I think I answered that one. So we sort of touched on this, but what was the first romantic novel that you remember feeling represented by, or a story containing a romantic novel containing a love story that you felt sort of represented you?
Well, the kiss quotient for me, right? Like there's characters like and you see him interacting with his family, and they're eating Vietnamese food, and I could like totally see my my family doing the same thing, because we, even though like I think her characters live in California, and I grew up in Louisiana, but it's that you just knew like they knew what it was like, obviously because Helen is Vietnamese, but that's just something I had not seen often. The other book that is not Vietnamese was Crazy Rich Asians. I know it's like totally bananas and a wild plot, but just to see like so many Asian people in one book, so that yes, one could be a villain, one could be a nerd, one could be like the hot guy, because they could be all these multitudes of people. And it just meant a lot to me.
Man, do you want to? I'll mix it up this time.
I think the very first romance novel that I read that I saw myself was from an indie author. Her name is Maida Malby, and it's called The Boracay Vows. And I started reaching out to her, like reading her books, researching, because there's really no one out there. I mean, there's some touches of Filipino this and Filipino that, but it's not really the main character. So when I saw her, that's how and then I started doing writers conference. Then I met Tiff Marcelo in person, and she said, "Are you going to write Filipino characters? Are you?" I already did. And so it was like, oh my goodness, I'm not alone. So it was very, very recent. And of course, Arsenic and Adobo is here now, although it's not really romance. But seeing my culture there, like, it's like, oh my goodness, that's my aunt she's talking about. It's so personal. And that's when I said, okay, maybe we can push this further. We can contribute more. We can shake this literary world loose a little bit and put more women of color and culture. And so, yes, for me, it's fairly recent. So I want to see more, and I'm excited. And yes, the Crazy Rich Asians. Awesome.
But can you imagine like our book could be somebody's first book where they saw themselves represented in, and that just makes it, all the stress and challenges, totally worth it.
I know.
That's why I literally read when it was getting rough in there, and I made some choices that I was like, I think someone still needs this book. I was sort of like, when I was trying to not make the perfect the enemy of the good, I was just sort of like, Eden, do you think someone needs this book, even if your favorite thing isn't there anymore? I was like, yes, okay. All right, editing brain, you win this round. Let's go make this book for someone. Gosh, so I'm sort of stuck. I think I felt, so I speak to my childhood and like speak to now. So in my childhood, gosh, I can't remember if I read it or I just saw a movie, but Waiting to Exhale, it was such a phenomenon that it felt, I was like, I just remember one scene in the movie where all of them have these giant, beautiful hats that come out of church. So like, oh, I felt like it's great to be a Black woman, or I maybe like 10, 11, if that, it's like, it's great to be a Black woman. And even though they're going through it and coming out of the other side, it's like, yeah, there are things to look forward to in adulthood and love to find and things like that. So sort of more generally, and then specifically, I think Talia Hibbert and The Princess Trap. I think it was called something else before, but her character was not just Black and not a Black Barbie, because often when you have representation, it's someone who's she's the skin tone, but pretty much like everyone else. And she, like my girl was like a size 14 and curvy, and she was eating chocolate cake. And I was like, yes, you. I like you. I'm about you. I want to be in your journey. I was like, that is okay. I see it. I see me in this eating this cake, wearing this dress. I feel like I could be you. So more specifically, Talia Hibbert and Princess Trap. I guess again more recently, and that's like a huge gap, between Wait the Exhale and that time. But not enough stories, and not enough kind of
Detail. So gorgeous.
Camille.
I think mine, I was thinking, but I don't know a book for sure. But I remember when I was first getting into romance, I was in love with Alyssa Cole. She was just coming out with her princess series, like Accidental Royals or something like that. But Princess in Theory was the first one. And that one, I just remember like reading the conversations between her friends, like the main character and her friend. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, this is how me and my friends talk. So lots of Alyssa Cole. And then, yes, on the indie side, there's so many Black indie romance authors that are still holding down the fort. And so I read a lot of Katrina Jackson, read Rebecca Weatherspoon, and Christina C. Jones. Just so much to be read that really like shows a variety of Black experiences, but something that I connected to for one reason or another.
Awesome. So getting into our writing, we talked about like the books that we felt like influenced us as but what about books, movies, films that influenced your writing or influenced the story? Like, was there a scene that you're like, I want to remake that, or was, or you just like something that made you think of this is the most romantic thing in the world?
I am into K-drama right now. Like I binge watch it because I'm studying their treatment. I mean, when we watch a movie, right? And a pivotal, an important scene, the director will take like maybe 2-3 shots from different corners. With K-drama, they'll take 8. There's 8 different shots. And so I feel like they're taking you through that moment, like the movement of emotions. So for me, I'm inspired to watch K-drama and see how I can translate that emotional journey in my writing. But that's just me.
I don't have a specific book or movie, but I know that when I started dating my husband, like romantic comedies were at their height, and that's what he would take me to go see in our dates. And I just love like how fun and light they were, and obviously like both characters would find true love. And as much as I try to sit down and write like a drama or something serious, like it's always lighter and fun and happy, and that's that's the vibe of most of my writing. And I try, but it's not me. And I'll read other people's books. I love Kennedy Ryan's writing. She writes beautifully, and sometimes I get jealous. I'm like, wait, this is not how I write. I'm never gonna write this the way she does, because that's not who I am. And I'm glad that rom-coms are making a comeback. Like Always Be My Maybe. What was the one with Taye Diggs and Lucy Liu? Set It Up. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Oh, so I wish that it was about the two of them and not the other two characters, because I love those two actors. Yeah.
That's what it should have been about. And that movie by now. But Netflix is doing great things with bringing rom-coms back to us. I'm very happy. But yes, I just consume a lot of romance. I just love it. I love it. Before I was into like the romance genre reading, I was watching a lot of romance movies, rom-coms, but also like the books that weren't technically romance, like I was living for the romance arcs. So I don't know, nothing specific, but I just love it. And then it all came out in this book.
I think Jasmine Guillory gave me the courage by convictions to call my book a romance, because she was the first book I read where the personal growth track and the romance track sort of ran parallel. And you know, the rebuilding of her relationship with her sister in the wedding date. Sorry. And also, like, I don't have to, because they were both so important to me, like the friendship angles and the love angles. Like, I can do both. It's fine. It's fine. I can. I feel like she gave me permission. And so I think that is something that's important to me, to have the external relationships and the friendship relationships or the other important relationships in that person's life also get to a great place. That the one that needs to be fixed so they can love again or love fully or be vulnerable. There's usually something in there that, like, is holding someone back from being able to try and grow and change for someone, and to sort of pick at them both at the same time and still try and heal them both, or at least address that there can be healing. You know, a happy for now with the, like, of the soul, if you will, and then and then you can do the romance. Like, I feel like the wedding date gave me that. Like, I can try and shoot for that.
I love that book.
All right. We have only a little bit of time left. This has been so much fun. So I guess I'll ask 2 questions, and we can sort of getting to a sort of a wrapping up place. First, what do you hope your readers come away with from your current novel? And second, what's next? So I'm gonna go backwards. Ma'an, we're gonna start with you.
Okay, so what was the question? Oh yeah. What they okay, hope readers take away from my book. Inspiration, really. We all have this journey, whether or not it's really like life or death, and someone's pain is maybe different, but it's still pain. So hope and inspiration. That is really the goal. It's really finding the love within yourself to be able to love somebody else is really how I want to put this book out there. What's next? Because of my K-drama love, I just wrote a novel that was also finalist for an Equality in Publishing Award. Yeah, so it is, yes, I'm so excited. So it's a Filipino-American girl that lives in Manhattan who met a South Korean K-drama actor. And tentatively, should I even say it? So tentatively, so they spent 12 hours in Manhattan. And
oh, I love it. I love Before Sunrise.
I know. I was so inspired, like, what's going to happen after that 12 hours? So that's what's next for me. Oh, and I love this so much. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh. This is great. Pinkan?
Oh, it's me. Well, superficially for my book, I want people to take away that sex toys are fun and everyone needs to own at least one, since my heroine sells sex toys. But really, I think it's both of the characters struggle with family expectations, or what they think are family expectations versus what they want to do. And I think for each culture, Black culture and Vietnamese culture, that's really, that's a lot to handle, a lot to navigate. But I think that it's important to really stay true to yourself, because you can't be you can't be happy if you're not true to yourself. And I think you can find that balance between family and what you really want to do. And what's next? I'm currently writing book 2 of the series, and it's set in New Orleans, and we're gonna dig into Vietnamese history and culture in New Orleans, and how that affects our heroine who's visiting from DC.
Oh,
and it's set during Mardi Gras, so that'll be really fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the DC premise. I love the New Orleans premise.
One of my favorite responses that I've gotten from readers has been those who like connect with like the grief component of this book, like for some way, for whatever reason, it helped them and like the grief that they're experiencing in their life, like look at it in different ways or comfort them in a way, because an aspect of this is like your loved ones staying with you even after they're gone from their bodies in the physical earth. So that's like really special to me when people connect with that part. But also if there's any like Black writers like reading this, I hope it inspires them to like write their stories, because I can like, if I go back to like my Goodreads like read list, like what I read maybe 3-4 years ago, like that's probably the stories that inspired me, like, oh, I can write love stories, you know, like made me like change lanes of what I was writing in previously. So yeah, I hope it does that. And next I'm writing, I mentioned before, the other character, Tawanda. It's her book. We'll see what happens.
You're gonna make it.
It's due, my revision is due October 4th, and it's probably not gonna be done, but I'll have to email my editor probably by the end of this week for an extension, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sending you all the good vibes through the internet. That like inspiration and text writing will happen.
I need all of the vibes.
I think I really want readers to like. I truly believe, according as it sounds, that books are empathy machines, and that I want readers to get stuck in EJ's story and see her struggles and her ideas and the way she loves, and get to the end, smile, sigh, and then pick up another book about another woman of color. There's so many different kinds. I mean, right here in this panel, there's so many different kinds of stories available, and when people talk about diversity, like it's a class they didn't sign up for, but for us, it's our life, it's our existence, and just like there's so many interesting stories, and get out there and read them. They're great. And so I hope that people are inspired to read another story from another woman of color. And what's next is hopefully Maya's book, EJ's sister, which is coming slowly. They're coming slowly. Yeah.
We're sending you good vibes too.
Thank you. I accept all good vibes. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for taking the time. I've loved this conversation. Thank you to the Right One Book Fest for allowing us to share our story and our ideas and in this space. And to everyone who watched, thanks for tuning in. Have a great one.
Bye.
Thank you.